Today, as I mentioned, we're going to specifically talk about one of our programs, the Legal Counseling Project, which provides free consultations with lawyers relating to landlord-tenant law, and the updates in general about the New York State Emergency Rental Assistance Program. So as just an overview to start of what the Emergency Rental Assistance Program is, or ERAP. It's run by the Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance, and it provides help with paying rent due to financial hardships during the COVID-19 pandemic. The application had closed in the fall, but as of January 11th, it has reopened. ERAP is accepting applications again from eligible households that are at risk of homelessness or housing instability. One major change with the application with the program since it's reopened is that there are not currently federal funds available in most parts of New York State to immediately provide assistance for new applicants. So basically for applications that have been submitted since September 21st, they're not being immediately reviewed. They'll only be reviewed if and when additional funds become available, which might mean that if you're submitting applications since September 21st, or if you now submit an application, there will be longer wait times on a response. And unfortunately, the actual financial assistance with rent is not guaranteed at this time, since the funds in most parts of the state have run out. However, once funding does become available, which we're hopeful that it will become available again, possibly this spring, and New York State has requested for more funding to come into the program, the applications will end up getting reviewed on a first come, first served basis. So if you already have an application that's in the pool, it will hopefully be reviewed and accepted, and assistance will be provided, sooner if you already have the application submitted. And another major point here is that you should still apply for ERAP if you are eligible, even though applications are not being immediately reviewed, because while you have a pending or open ERAP application, eviction proceedings cannot move forward against you. So this is obviously a significant advantage to applying to ERAP. Even if you won't get actual rental assistance right away, you can't be evicted while your application is still open or pending. And over here on the side, there is a hotline for ERAP assistance through the Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance. So we'll post that number in the chat. If you have questions that come up, that's one resource. We'll be posting a number of other resources as well as we go. But that's one main hotline that you can call for questions about the program or about applications. So to start with the benefits that ERAP provides in general when the funding does come through, the primary form of assistance that the program provides is for rental arrears payments. So this would be for rent that you owe on past months. And approved households may receive up to 12 months of these rental arrears payments. If a household has already received 12 months of assistance through ERAP, that's the cap. So even though the application has now reopened, you wouldn't be eligible to apply again for more assistance if you've already hit the 12-month limit. But it can also provide 3 months of additional rental assistance with, ongoing months if you're eligible for the arrears payment assistance, and up to 12 months of electric or gas utility arrears payments as well, if that's something that a household needs help with as well. So in terms of eligibility for ERAP, there are full details about eligibility on the ERAP website. We'll post the link to that main site in the chat as well, because it goes into much more detail. But in general, the eligibility is determined right now by households that are at or below 80% of the area median income. And The exact income cutoffs vary by county, I believe, is how they organize it. So there are charts on the website that we'll link to that have those specific income cutoffs for each county in New York State. So you can check sort of where your household falls at that 80%. And then the other things they mention related to eligibility is that if someone in your household has received unemployment benefits or experienced financial hardship due directly or indirectly to the COVID-19 pandemic. So that essentially means any financial hardship that you or a member of your household has experienced since the date that they set, which is March 13th, 2020, as the start of the pandemic. That would make you eligible for this assistance. If you have rental arrears for rent owed since, again, the start of the pandemic, March 13th, 2020, then you would be eligible for this assistance. And going along with that, they specified that the household is at risk of experiencing homelessness or housing instability. But this, they consider that this is shown by having rental arrears. So if you owe rent for past months, that essentially means that you would be eligible for assistance when the funding becomes available. So before we get into just a few more details about the application process itself, I just wanted to reiterate that even though there are not currently funds for new ERAP applications at this time, there are still two main reasons to apply if you think you may be eligible. The first one being that this will postpone eviction proceedings against you while you have a pending ERAP application. And if and when more funding does become available, your application will be reviewed sooner and hopefully funded sooner if you apply now rather than waiting for them to announce that funds are available, because your application will already be like in line to be reviewed sooner. So still beneficial to apply if you think you may be eligible for this program, even though the funding itself has paused. So now in just the next couple of slides, we'll go through what the process is like to apply, just a brief overview of the application. To start with, these are the sections of the application that you'll go through. So your information, there's a COVID-19 hardship form that we'll look at on the next slide. Information on the other members of your household income, your lease, and the rent arrears that you owe, as well as your utilities bills, if that's a type of assistance you're also requesting. There's also a place to mention any prior or current rental assistance that you've received. And then at the end of the application, there's a place to upload documents, which again, we'll talk about in a couple slides from now, but it's helpful if you get all of the documents together in advance and sort of have most of your information ready so you can start and finish an application in one sitting. That's the easiest way to go about it. So like I said, here's the COVID-19 hardship section, which is fairly straightforward. It just has three main questions. The first one being if anyone in your household received unemployment benefits at any point since March 13th, 2020. So that doesn't need to be current. It can be just at any point during that time. And then it asks, how were you or your household members financially impacted by COVID-19? The options they give are if there was a reduction in household income, if there were increased costs, or any other type of financial impact you experienced. And then the last section has some different categories you can select if they apply to you or anyone in your household. So for example, if anyone already has a pending eviction case against them, if anyone's a veteran, or various other categories, or if someone is currently unemployed and has been for at least 90 days. These are all just different pieces of information that they ask about to determine the hardship that faced during the COVID-19 pandemic. And so here's just an overview of the documentation that they request. As I said, this is easier to collect in advance, so you have it ready to upload when you start the application. And we'll post a link in the chat to this whole document, because you only need one form of documentation for each of these categories, but there are various options that they'll accept. So you'll need one form of ID, a document proving your residence at the address where you're applying for assistance at, documentation for your income and anyone else in your household that has an income, and documentation to show your monthly rent amount. And also, if you are applying for assistance with utilities, then you'll have to include your utilities bills as well. So these are just examples. Like I said, we'll link to this full document, so you can kind of go through and get your documentation in advance. But these are the types of things that they accept. So, and various documents would cover multiple categories. So for example, if you have a driver's license that has your current address on it, that would work for your ID and would also work as your proof of address. If you upload your lease to prove your address, it would also work in this next section about your monthly rent amount, because that would be shown on your lease as well. So certain documents would cover multiple categories that they ask for. And then there's also various options to show your income. Again, you have to provide documentation for your own income and anyone else who has an income in your household. That could be pay stubs, unemployment benefits information, your tax return, things like that would all cover, you know, showing your income. And again, the last section is just for your utilities bills, only in the case that you're applying for assistance with those as well. So lastly, there is a link where you can check your application status. So if you already have applied for ERAP and haven't gotten any response yet, you can check the application status at this link. We'll post this in the chat as well. You need the application number and the applicant's date of birth. And if you start an application for ERAP, once you fill out the first form, which is the applicant information, that includes your email. And as soon as you complete that form, they'll email you the application number that you can save. And the application number will also appear on the website or on the web page, like on the application itself. So you can, you know, just write it down or save it. And then later on, you can check your application status. Obviously, as I mentioned, currently applications aren't getting reviewed. So there's a good chance that your application will show up as pending for a longer time than, you know, would have been the case last year. At this time, they're not immediately being reviewed, but this is a good way to just periodically check to make sure you didn't miss any type of communication about it, that it's still pending and things like that. All right, so just a couple more resources. We already provided the link to the main ERAP page. And this is where, as I had mentioned, you can find full eligibility details and also, you know, actually start an application. There are also these lists of community organizations that help with, you know, directly complete an ERAP application. So the first link is to organizations that are based in the boroughs of New York City. And there's also this second link that covers other counties in New York State. And these organizations can help you, you know, get documents together and actually complete and submit an application for rental assistance. So these links can be very helpful. Lastly, kind of moving on from ERAP itself, I'm just going to talk briefly about one of our programs, which is the Legal Counseling Project. This program offers the chance to speak with an attorney over the phone for free about housing and landlord-tenant law questions. So this covers things beyond ERAP. The first part of the presentation was to provide information about sort of the updates to that program that might be applicable to you. But our program, the Legal Counseling Project, covers a variety of other landlord-tenant issues that you might be experiencing. For example, questions about apartment maintenance, if you're having trouble with necessary repairs getting done, your landlord won't do them, things like that. Issues if your landlord has been harassing you, issues with other tenants, as well as, issues like we just talked about with, difficulties paying rent or questions about eviction cases that might be against you. So this program is, a one-on-one consultation with a lawyer where they can address your specific situation and your specific legal questions over the phone for free. So we have a simple online intake form through the IDG Legal website that's accessible to you all. And that's where you just submit your basic information. It's much simpler than the ERAP application that we just went through. And that comes into us and just indicates that you're requesting a consultation. And we'll post the link to that form in the chat. It'll also be on the next slide as well. And in that intake form, you can also upload documents if you want to, like your lease, or if you received something from your landlord that you had questions about. You can include that in the intake form. It'll come into us so the lawyer can review it before your call. And then you'll be contacted by NYCLA, by me, myself, within 24 to 48 hours to schedule your consultation. And I'll just be following up with you based on your intake form to get usually a little bit more information about any specific questions you might have for the lawyer, so I can let them know in advance and they'll be prepared for the call. And then, to schedule the consultation itself, it'll be at a specific date and time that the lawyer is available and that you're also available. The lawyer will call you and, be able to go over your questions and speak to you about your situation on the phone and give you helpful advice and resources that, match your specific legal questions regarding a landlord-tenant issue. And like I said, on this last page, there's some QR codes to the intake form itself and to contact IDG Legal. There's also the IDG Legal helpline for, general questions about those resources. And this will connect you, to the intake form as well as the link that we had posted in the chat.